Hey everyone, it's triplemangothreat, also known as Ashley. This is kind of a face reveal of sorts, but let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about Gonti, Lord of Luxury. For 2 colorless, black, legendary creature, Death Touch. When Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it. You may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. So, to clarify, even if Gonti isn't on the battlefield, you're still able to cast any cards that were exiled by him. So what I think is the most important part of this deck is how to make Gonti's triggers happen multiple times so you can cheat out more triggered abilities that he can do, or we send him to the grave and we bring him right back. So cards that bring Gonti back, just to name a few: Nim Deathmantle. Great card, it combos really well with Brea from the Commander 2016 decks, but let's talk about Gonti. So you have a sack outlet, for example, Carrion Feeder, or you can use Plague Crafter, Diabolic Intent, Attrition. You get your commander in the grave. Nim Deathmantle, you're going to pay 4 mana to get him out of the grave. It's just as if you paid the 4 mana to cast him the first time. So I think that is a great deal. And you get one of his triggers because he enters the battlefield. That is the key word. So a card like Crystal Shard, if you've ever heard of it, we have Erratic Portal. Pay 1, tap, return target creature to its owner's hand unless his controller pays 1. Of course, you will never pay the 1 because you're going to pay 1 to return him to your hand, and then when you have mana, you'll pay the 4 to put him right back on the battlefield, and you'll get another trigger. Or at the end step of your opponent's turn and it's about to be your turn, oh, I'm going to return Gonti to my hand, and at my turn, I'm going to cast him again. I'm going to look at the top 4 of your library. Well, that's pretty cool. Kind of a no-brainer in this deck is Panharmonicon, because if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So what this means is that Panharmonicon is going to get you 2 triggers of Gonti. So more triggers, the better. So I have 2 cards here. One is called Umbilicus and Blood Clock. So these are pretty much the same. At your upkeep, you need to return a permanent to your hand. You can always return them, or you have to pay 2 life. So you will always return Gonti to your hand. So great way to get those triggers. Another great card is Helm of the Host, because at the beginning of combat, he'll enter, you get a trigger, and you can even swing with him because he has Death Touch, and you can maybe get rid of one of their pesky creatures. Another great card in here is Conjurer's Closet, because at the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So what happens is you're going to get another trigger at your end step too. So we're all about those triggers today, aren't we? So speaking of whenever we were putting Gonti in the grave, we can use Mimic Vac to bring him right back. So it has Imprint. Whenever a non-token creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may exile that card. So we exile Gonti. If you do, return each other exiled card with Mimic Vat to its owner's hand. Pay 3 mana, tap it, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of the exiled card. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Again, we're getting all these triggers, and it's so good. It gets even better. So every time he enters the battlefield, we're now able to double it again with Strionic Resonator. We pay 2 mana, tap it, and we're going to trigger his ability again. So when we go to combat, we're going to get Blade of Selves. And with that, we get, let's say for example we have 3 opponents. We're going to combat, we're going to swing Gonti at them. And guess what? We're going to get 3 Gonti triggers. before I even hit you, I'm going to look at your top 4. I'm going to look at your top 4, I'm going to look at your top 4. Gonti is pretty cool. Another thing, when Gonti's in the grave, we have Animate Dead. So we're going to bring him right back, only for 2 mana. Now, my absolute favorite card in here has to be Lifeline. It is double-edged sword for your opponents, but ultimately, you're going to get the most benefit out of it, hopefully, unless you're playing against Marin. That'd be really, really bad. So Lifeline says, for 5 colorless, it's an artifact. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is in play, return that creature from your graveyard to play at the end of turn. Let's say, for example, you have another creature out. Maybe it's that Carrion Feeder that we sacked Gonti to. At the end of turn, we're going to bring him right back, only because we have a creature, but this also applies to our opponents, so be very careful when you play this. It would be great early game, but just be very careful. A lot of the creatures in this deck are ETB, or enters the battlefield. So one of my favorites right now, and it's going up in price, is Massacre Worm. So when Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, that player loses 2 life. So if they have a million 1/1s, they are now dead. And after we kill all their creatures, assuming they weren't tokens because they immediately get exiled when they hit the graveyard, we have Sepulchral Primordial. He has Intimidate. He's a 5/4 for 7 mana. Primordial enters the battlefield. For each opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That's amazing. So another fun part of the deck is getting as much mana as you can. So I have Magus of the Coffers. You tap, you pay 2, tap it, you get a black mana for each swamp you control. Well, this is a mono black deck, which means it's only black, so that's going to be great for us. We also have Extraplanar Lens, so when it comes into play, we're going to exile a swamp that's already in play, and then our swamps then tap for double. But this applies to each player, so again, be careful if you're playing against another mono black deck, because they're going to get just as much good out of it as you are. And then we have Nirkana Revenant. So whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add an additional black. And you can also swing in for a lot of damage because you pay a black and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it's great either way. And last but not least, my favorite card. I had trouble buying this card, even though it's amazing. I think it was about $30 when I purchased it. It's Cabal Coffers. So you pay 2 mana, tap it, you get a black for each swamp you control. This is a great card, and I just have to say it's one of my best purchases I've ever made, just because it's so good, and I never knew how powerful it would be. I'm just like, oh, it's another card. I can put up with Magus of the Coffers. You have to pay 5 mana for that creature, and it's easier for creature removal rather than land, unless they're playing a land destruction deck, which we all hate, but we love if we're playing it. So all I have to say is this deck was so much fun to make. It took a little bit of patience because you have to put a lot of money into these cards, you know, but when you get to play the deck, it's so much fun because you know what? You're not just playing your deck, you're playing your opponent's. You get to take their cards. Maybe they have a Rhystic Study. Well, guess what? Now I have a Rhystic Study. Thank you for contributing your deck to my deck, so I'm able to play your cards better than you would have ever imagined. Thank you guys for watching. I'm triplemangothreat, Ashley, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace. Just so everybody knows, the deck list is going to be in the description below, so be sure to check that out. It's in the Tapped Out, it's on Tapped Out, and it's a great website. I'm not sponsored by them, but I really like entering my deck list on there because I know exactly how much mana I have in my deck and how much lands are contributing. Of course, it's a mono black deck. It doesn't really matter as long as you have swamps. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.